Good evening, I am Ibrahim Sani and you are watching Market Talk. Welcome. Last week, the Prime Minister, Datuk Sri Najib Tun Razak, officiated the first day of operations of the DFTZ, or the Digital Free Trade Zone in Sepang, heralding the much-anticipated boom in the e-commerce industry. Following this, Lazada Malaysia has been quoted by the press as saying that they are on track with preparations to cater to the 600 million population of ASEAN as the projected customer base once the DFTZ takes fully effect in 2019. Lazada has also integrated its processes and systems into the DFTZ ecosystem as it will become one of the distributing points for the ASEAN network. The upside of DFTZ is numerous, and now the question is, can Lazada keep up with that pace? So here to discuss this with me and more is Hans-Peter Ressel, the Lazada Malaysia CEO. Welcome to the show, HP.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Lazada Malaysia is now owned 83% by Alibaba. DFTZ is, we can say the two main actors would be the MDEC and Alibaba. To say that DFTZ is going to be a big part of Lazada Malaysia is actually an understatement. Can you share with us the kind of exposure that you can expect following DFTZ the moment it's run fully fledged in 2019?
So I think DFTZ is very exciting for us. I think it's a big project between the Malaysian government, Alibaba, Post Malaysia, Malaysian Airport, Shanyao, the logistics arm of Alibaba, and Lazada. I think by opening up the DFTZ, Digital Free Trade Zone, we will enable local Malaysian brands, sellers and SMEs to expand their reach beyond Malaysian borders, not only being able, when selling online, to sell nationwide, but selling to China, selling to other ASEAN countries. On top of that, we will also be able to bring big regional and global brands into the DFTZ, making Malaysia a true operations and fulfillment hub for these global brands, have their operations based in Malaysia, and then do cross-ASEAN-wide business.
You have been quoted in the press by saying that Budget 2018 that we saw presented in the country 2 or 3 weeks ago as saying that a key thrust would be on e-commerce. Do you think that this ties with DFTZ and the budget ties together with what the government is trying to do?
I think absolutely. If you go even a bit more into the past, the Budget 2017, the National E-Commerce Strategic Roadmap, I think there are a lot of pieces were being put together that then in the end resulted into the rollout of the DFTZ. I think there's another budget allocation for the DFTZ itself. There's an additional budget allocation for making SMEs help succeed and grow the business. And I think Budget 2017, I think, was all about the internet and the SMEs. 2018 ties into well. So I think Malaysia is, in our views, the most supportive government in the entire ASEAN region to support the growth of e-commerce, to support the digitalization of the economy. And I think Digital Free Trade Zone really fits in well here.
And of course, Lazada has operations everywhere in ASEAN, and I understand that your prerogative and your remit is in Malaysia. But how do you think this will play with the businesses of Lazada across many of these countries in ASEAN?
I think you just need to look into some of the export figures in Southeast Asia, in ASEAN. I think there's a lot of import and export happening between the ASEAN countries, and Malaysia is a big trade partner to Singapore, Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, and Vietnam. I think now it's key to really understand what are the sectors in which, let's say, the Philippines, Singapore, or Indonesia have a lot of demand for Malaysian products. And I think we need to enable these businesses, these SMEs, to also tap into the B2C opportunity, selling directly through the end consumer and having integrated logistics from Malaysia to these consumer markets directly to the house. And I think that's something, there's a big opportunity. There are a lot of sectors that are very interesting that might not even be very big today in the e-commerce sphere, but with rolling out DFTZ, we will really allow these sectors to flourish and also tap into the cross-ASEAN-wide e-commerce opportunity.
Okay, but we can't ignore the elephant in the room. Right now, the devil's in the detail. There's a lot of noise and chatter right now online, particularly on the last mile fulfillment process, where a lot of customers are saying that there is an error in delivery, there is a problem in what they are ordering, search engine is very poor. All these kind of questions keep on popping up in social media and so on. And considering that 11/11, which is the biggest sale point for Lazada and many other e-commerce sites around the world actually, is now upon us in the next coming 3 or 4 days, how do you match the requirements needed to deliver such number of volume with the problems that you're facing right now with the last mile problems?
No, I think I would not call them problems. I think there are always challenges, especially in a hyper-growth environment, in a market that is growing very fast, a company like Lazada that is growing triple-digit year on year. And I think here, you especially on the payment and logistics side, there will always be, there will always be bottlenecks and challenges that we have to face. We had to face them 5 years ago. We face them today. We will face them in 5 years from now. I think you will see that in a couple of months, maybe next year, the logistics infrastructure in Malaysia will not be sufficient anymore to deliver all the e-commerce parcels that come out of Lazada. So I think it's very important to really work with the payment providers to cater for this surge of OTP passwords that are being sent out when you order. It's important to work with the infrastructure, the providers on the logistics side, to really help them understand the volume increase, help them ramp up their capacity so that we are all ready for the volumes next year. And I think 11/11 is the biggest campaign. I think its online revolution starts in, on 11/11 for us in a couple of days. And I think here we did a lot of preparation for that campaign. We moved to a new data center. We expanded our servers. We really tried to cater for that surge of 10 times the traffic, 10 times the demand of an average day. And I think here the preparations are
okay.
Going well.
In the statement that Lazada has issued saying that in the last few weeks we have been upgrading, we meaning Lazada has been upgrading our servers and system with the goal of improving the platform experience to shoppers for the 11/11 experience. Can we assume now that that experience has been, the upgrading has been done?
Absolutely. I think we are in the final steps of finalizing this migration. The migration is done, and right now it's just really cleaning up and making sure that everything is stable and robust.
The problem then is because of the bad user experience by the buyers, apparently the sellers are now being impacted. They say a lot of sellers are negatively affected. Bad ratings are given to the sellers. Some of them are saying not Lazada that is getting the bad ratings. How do you respond to these kind of questions?
I think in the end, it's always a matter of how do you really make sure that the experience both on the seller and the consumer side gets better. I think there will always be instances where not everything goes well. I think it's key how to react to these things. So when you start talking to consumers that did not always have the best experience, there's always a chance of proving to the consumer again to try the service. I think if you focus on the consumer side on great assortment, genuine brands, genuine products, great prices, and a great consumer experience, people will understand that and people will trust you again. On the seller side, I think in the end, if you show the seller that you can grow your business, despite a couple of hiccups here and there, you can grow your business. We help you through these campaigns. We give you the tools that you need. We give you the data that you need. We give you the support on the logistics side and the after-sales service that you need. I think in the end, it's all about working together. The entire industry is still young. People understand.
Yeah. I mean, I applaud Lazada by constantly engaging with the media. That's great. But of course, the real issue is when things go well, not many people talk about it. But if things go wrong, the issue is being amplified. Do you think that Lazada is being unfairly targeted by the consumers?
No, I think right now we don't feel targeted at all. I think what we see is a lot of support from a lot of customers. I think you see a lot of customers sharing that, hey, we had a great experience, or hey, I also had one bad experience 3 years ago. But I mean, it's very often a little bit more complex than that. Consumers are smart. Consumers understand that things can go wrong. I think it's always just a matter of how to react to that. And I think we have the consumer trust after all these years, not because we are always perfect, but we are very conscious and reflective on the situation and really try to help consumers in every situation, both on the consumer side, but also on the seller side.
HP will take a short break, but when we come back, we'll discuss a little bit more about the product placements in Lazada. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Market Talk. I'm your host, Ibrahim Sani. Question now is on how big will the e-commerce business be in the country following the DFTZ announcement. Here joining me is Lazada Malaysia CEO Hans-Peter Ressel. Of course, HP, when we talk about e-commerce, I just want to give a clear imagery to our audience in that brick and mortar places normally have this small number of products in terms of quality, in terms of quantity, but the volume of each single product is a lot. With e-commerce, it's the opposite side. You have so many small products and sold in small quantities, but because of the sheer number of the various number of products, this has enriched a lot of consumers' user experience, the so-called long tail SKU. Do you think that because of this nature of e-commerce, you have a lot of work in trying to inform and educate and advertise and promote these many products to the consumers?
So I think it's just beautiful how e-commerce enables a wide range of sellers sell their entire assortment to the entire population. I think there's just the sheer number of SKUs, 80 million products today at Lazada allows everyone in entire Malaysia to experience the full range of everything. So I think this is a big opportunity for everyone. Obviously, in the end, it's all about how do you bring the relevant products to the relevant person. So I don't have kids yet, so if you would show me baby products, I would not be the most relevant person. So I think it's a lot driven by the back end, the tools and the algorithms we're using. I think we learn a lot from Alibaba, how to really individualize and personalize your experience. So the products that are being boosted to you, the products you receive on Facebook and the products you receive in a newsletter are already starting to be catered to a segment in which we put you based on your experience.
Okay. In my household, there are two Lazada hardcore shopaholics, myself and my wife. Both of us have a very separate kind of user experience in terms of how products are pushed. For me, I'm very happy. The products that are pushed my way, they're pretty much the things that I want and I need. My wife doesn't seem to get the products that she wants and needs. Do you think that this kind of problem will persist, or will there be seriously, machine learning, AI, whatever, better search engine, something like that, that can enable your customers, the entire plethora of them, to be receiving that kind of experience that I'm getting?
Absolutely. Give us a couple of months. We're working right now on backend changes, especially on our app, where 10 people in a room will ideally see 10 different banners, 10 different products based on their browsing behavior, based on their shopping behavior. We are working towards that, and I think Q1 next year, we're going to have that live.
You mentioned about 5 minutes ago that you're working a lot, learning a lot from Alibaba. How has the integration been? Has it been seamless? Are there hiccups? What's the story there?
So I think the last 1.5 years were very insightful and very, very interesting. I think with Alibaba together, the sheer amount of resources they put on helping Lazada, grow the platform, the modules, the integration, the learning opportunities we have, unbelievable. We could have not learned in the last 1.5 years what we have learned thanks to Alibaba. And I think it's an ongoing process. There are a lot of things happening across payment, with Alipay, with logistics, together with Shanyao, on the commercial side, marketing side, collaboration everywhere. And at any given point in time, there are a lot of people, either in China or Alibaba people in Southeast Asia working with our team on further integration.
Third-party logistics feature very much in your daily life. Do you think that there is room for the third-party logistic companies in Malaysia and perhaps in Southeast Asia to actually improve to better serve you as your biggest client?
So absolutely. I think we're working very closely with players like Post Malaysia. I think Post Malaysia is a big partner for us. It's our biggest delivery partner, and there are others like GDEX. We work with Post on the DFTZ, and I think the way Post, for example, put themselves up also to the future growth of the e-commerce parcels and really streamlining their processes and systems and tools towards the increasing demand there just shows how close the relationship is and how great it is. I think the third-party logistics is an absolutely key pillar for us to be able to deliver all the parcels in the future.
And of course, being an e-commerce business, showing up at brick and mortar places might not be part of your core thrust. Yet, 2 or 3 weeks ago, Lazada signed a deal with Petronas Dagangan. Does this mean that you guys are now moving into brick and mortar places like petrol stations?
What it means is that we follow the consumer behavior, and consumers are on their mobile phone, on their laptops, but they also spend time at gas stations, in shopping malls, and in department stores. There is no such thing as online and offline if you think of it from a how do I engage with a consumer. Wherever the consumer is, you want to engage. And it happens to be that we work very closely with all the retailers in the market like Tesco and Senheng and Watsons and Sports Direct on an integrated on and offline experience. And also we work with Post, we work with Petronas, and we work with Shell on an integrated experience to really engage with the consumer wherever the consumer is.
Okay, of course, Lazada has its roots in Germany, where they have its roots in Rocket Internet. And one of the founders of Rocket Internet, Oliver Samwer, Ollie was quoted by the press 3 years ago thereof, saying that the ideal place that he can imagine is that a mall is like a showroom. People go there to experience things and stuff like that, and it will be ordered via e-commerce. How far are we from that reality right now?
So I think the integration between on and offline is proceeding very fast. Today, there are already places where you can order and you can pick up the item offline, you can return it, you can initiate the return online, but then drop it offline. And I think to maybe look at what Alibaba is doing in China in the Hammer supermarket, which is a full integration of on and offline payment, etc. This is a glimpse into the future, and it's something that is very interesting. And I think the integration of on and offline experience will just merge and converge even further in the future.
Okay, we'll take a short break, but when we come back, we'll discuss a little bit more about the SME sector that is expected to boom following e-commerce. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Market Talk. I'm your host, Ibrahim Sani. Today, we're talking about Lazada and, of course, e-commerce and, of course, DFTZ. Joining me in this very interesting discussion is Hans-Peter Ressel, HP. We've covered a few bases in terms of the e-commerce business, particularly with Lazada. Many shops, many online shops have come and gone. You can come in the form of group purchases like Groupon, or many other smaller shops that I dare not mention the name because some of them are still surviving but not thriving. How do you think your company can top against this many shops online that have come and gone?
So I think we just focus on doing what is the right thing to do. Working on increasing the assortment, working with the brands, having genuine products, having a long tail of products, from any different category you can imagine, working on stable payment and logistics solutions and customer experience, fulfillment experience is what always worked for us, and it's what we're going to focus on.
I mentioned very briefly just now about Rocket Internet, and of course, you're not going to get many fans discussing about the virtues of Rocket Internet. There are fans out there agreeing with how Rocket Internet does business. Do you think that with the introduction of Alibaba, one of the bigger companies in the world, how does that meld into the virtues and the values and the qualities of Lazada? Has there been friction in terms of the merger?
No, absolutely not. I think we are Alibaba. We're part of the Alibaba group today, 83%. And it was very interesting when we all met each other, and I think there was a mutual agreement that we are all surprised how similar we are. And a lot of Alibaba people told us we remind them at how the company was a couple of years ago. And we are still surprised how ambitious, how aggressive, how professional, and how much the people at Alibaba wanted. So we got really inspired across the board, and we seem to fit in very well culture-wise. I think when you look into how the people work together, how we collaborate, it's just as if we were like made for each other. I think it's an amazing experience in the last 1.5 years, and everything very fruitful and constructive.
And of course, Alibaba now has gone far bigger than e-commerce. They are into financial services, they are into logistics services, they're into management consulting. They are everywhere. Do you think that the same kind of future lies with Lazada, or at least Lazada Malaysia?
I hope we as Lazada are part of the future of Alibaba across various areas. I think today, payment, logistics, commercial relationships with the brands, sellers, and enabling them through technology and working on marketing solutions is the first priority. I think the market is still relatively small compared to the opportunity in the next 5 to 10 years. And I think it's really growing the market, growing the pie, and educating the people, working with the brands and the sellers, and enabling them to, be successful.
Okay, this brings me to an interesting point. You mentioned payment. Last month, if I'm not mistaken, Lazada announced cash on delivery payment. Isn't this opening yourself, the company, to risk, assuming that the buyer doesn't turn up and pay? Why COD in the first place?
So when you talk about one of the enablers for future growth of e-commerce, trust is one big factor, and trust in payment is another one. A lot of people have credit cards. Not everyone feels still comfortable to use them online, and we give them the opportunity to use cash. The item gets delivered, only then you pay. If the consumer doesn't want to pay, returns it, the item goes back to the seller. So there is no much risk involved. The only risk is that, in the end, maybe it takes 2 more days until the item goes back to the seller. But it's actually, from a consumer perspective, a zero-risk experience. If you don't want it, if you don't have the cash at home, if you change your mind, you just don't accept and pay.
Now, I can understand the consumer wins at this point. But again, being a platform, you have to not only appease the buyers, but also the sellers, the many, many sellers that make your platform work. Does this open the risk of the sellers?
No, absolutely not. Because if the buyer decides not to pay, the item goes back unopened, unused to the seller. The sellers actually love it. Because the sellers love it because you have so many products that are now being, where sellers now can activate the cash on delivery method, and the sales just spiked because of that. We had COD before, but now we're just enabling the service to a couple of more million of SKUs. And in the end, these sellers are very happy because in the end, it reduces it increases the trust. And people are just trying out the service, they like it, and then they stick with the seller who gave them a good experience. So sellers actually like it.
You were mentioning that you have to keep up with the trends. Of course, I mean, not just e-commerce, many other businesses have to do the same. Is COD the kind of trend right now that you have to see in Southeast Asia?
No, I think the trend goes a little bit away from COD. And if you look in some of the other markets like Vietnam and Philippines, which where the credit card penetration is fairly low, so cash on delivery is very high. You see the trend still. The more people get credit cards, the more would also switch from COD to credit card. But what's very helpful for us, the first or second purchase very often is still on cash on delivery. You test out the service, and once you like it, you move over to credit card because you trust the platform.
Okay, and of course, one core question that I have is on the training and of your own people. Are your own people getting the necessary training, either from Lazada or at least from Alibaba?
I think here we have a lot of training programs. We have an internal training program within Lazada, with an exchange program with Alibaba. I think we understand that we need to build the future e-commerce stars ourselves. There are not many companies out there that are bigger than Lazada, and we need to educate our own people. It's a very specific market in Southeast Asia, even more specific market in Malaysia, and it's our responsibility to really get them from the university as young professionals and then educate them and move into leadership roles.
The key point that you mentioned just now is that there's not many bigger markets or players other than Lazada. Do you think that now you have the social responsibility to actually boost sellers, particularly in the SME sector, following the DFTZ launch?
100%. I think this is where the biggest opportunity is. I think SMEs make up 80 to 90% of the GDP in Malaysia. There are like hundreds of thousands of SMEs there that are not even thinking of going online. We're working with SME Core, we're working with SSM, with MDEC to really educate them, bring them online, train them, and help them to grow the business not only nationwide, but also beyond Malaysian borders. That's absolutely what we are trying to do. That's absolutely why DFTZ will work and will be successful. And, the entire SME landscape will flourish because of that.
And not just SME in Malaysia, but of course the region as well, I presume.
I think for now, the big focus for us is local brands, allowing them to expand, local SMEs to initiate the cross-border trade, and then bringing global and regional brands into Malaysia to open up a real operations hub. In the next phase, mid-next year, end of next year, we will try to really build a cross-ASEAN, pan-ASEAN hub in which everyone can do business with everyone, ideally through the DFTZ, and really enable the entire ASEAN SME landscape to be successful.
Will we see Alibaba branding in this part of the world, or will they leverage on the 83% ownership that they have on Lazada, and therefore Lazada will take ownership of this branding?
I think Lazada is such a strong brand already. in Southeast Asia. Lazada is such a big brand in Malaysia. And for now, Lazada is the brand for e-commerce in this region.
All right, HP, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. I've been speaking to HP, or Hans-Peter Ressel, Lazada Malaysia CEO. And that wraps up this episode of Market Talk. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at 50awani. Download our app on the Google Play and the Apple App Store. And remember, you can listen to this interview and more on your podcasts. Simply search for Astro Awani or Market Talk, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Ibrahim Sani. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.